Hello everybody. Well, it is the end of December, and as promised, we're going to actually forge some Damascus. Now, the trick with this one is we've come a very long way in order to get here. If you have made it to this video and you plan to follow out and actually make a piece of cable Damascus, then you've had to have mastered basic forge welding to begin with, and let me tell you friends, that is no easy task. But at any rate, what we're going to go over is the forging of a piece of Damascus that is made from a steel cable. And there's a couple of caveats I want to throw at you at this stage, because once again, this is the forge welding process. It has a tendency to throw slag, sparks, and everything else. So please, please, please make sure that all your safety equipment is in place. Friends, this is where it starts to get a little hairy. Now, let's first of all talk about what you're going to be working on. When I say cable, I mean big honking cable. You need to start with a cable that is no less than 1 inch in diameter. And now this piece here is actually a rusty, nasty piece of cable. Now I've had a lot of people tell me that you cannot forge weld an old, nasty, rusty piece of cable. And I'm going to contend that you can. Is there a better chance for inclusions and things like that? Absolutely. However, I have gotten good results from even nasty cable to good cable. So if you'll follow what I do, there'll be a good chance you can get a good piece of Damascus out of this guy. So first of all, let's talk about preparation. Okay, so one of the first things you want to make sure of is that you have plenty of good flux. I mean buckets of it. It's going to be very critical for the rust that you're going to be taking off of the cable. Now the only other consideration you've got to have is you're going to have to let this bad boy soak in the heat, because if there's rust and oxidation, you've got to give that time, the flux time to eat everything off of it. So that's how you get away with the dirty cable. Outside of that, you got to take it, put it in the fire, heat it up, and then a good tight twist is going to be key to a good piece of poor man's Damascus. So let me take the first heat, flux it, and we'll take a gander. Okay, once you brought this guy up to heat, you need to flux it liberally. I'm talking coat it, slosh it in there, let it sink, let it soak, because the boric acid will actually act to eat a lot of the nasties off of this thing. Don't get too ambitious. What you want to do is you want to make sure that you do a 4 or 5 inch piece of this, but don't try to forge out the whole bar. Like I said, start small. But as you can see, this stuff is going to sizzle down. It's going to cook into the actual metal fibers itself. You want to put it back in the fire once you flux it, bring it up to a heat, and you want to pretty much soak it. Give that flux time to get in there and do its work. So we're going to pop it back in there. And you don't want to bring this to forge welding heat yet. You want it a good orange, but probably nothing more than that. Like I said, what you're doing right now is making sure that all the rust is going to fall off, and that the boric acid has time to dissolve whatever nasties it can dissolve. And if there's any hemp in the middle of the cable, the hemp can burn out as well. The next process when we come back out, when it's sure it's nice and good, is we've actually got to twist the cable a little bit tighter. But I'll tell you more about that on this next round.
So every now and then I forget to turn my microphone back on, and this is one of those times. So instead of live audio, you get to hear this voiceover. Now once the cable comes out of the fire, you want to make sure to lock it in the vise and use a pair of tongs. A pair of channel locks works great for this. And you want to twist the cable tighter. Now this is absolutely necessary to get a good pattern, because the first time you hit it, it's going to have a tendency to spread. The first forge weld heat that you want to make is a light welding heat. You don't bring it all the way up, because what you want to do is just pretty much tap it. This causes all the fibers to stick together. And once again, if you try to just crush this thing at this point, all those fibers will separate, and that will not be a good thing. You want to wait until your second heat until you really put the gusto to it. As you can see, the metal's a little hotter, and I'm hitting a lot harder with the hammer. This is what's really causing the fibers to fuse, but you have to work it up very, very slowly. The real trick with cable is getting everything in position to forge weld. Remember, because there are lots and lots of different little fibers, it's going to have a tendency to separate. So getting it into a square form first is absolutely crucial to getting a good weld. This also will help knock some of the slag out and make sure everything's sealed up when you go for that final weld. The third weld is going to come up, and this is where you're going to start flattening the metal just a little bit. So back to the fire, and here we go with the third weld. A full welding heat, as you can see here. Now this is where I start flattening it into a rectangular bar. Now the great thing about doing the work this way and going all the way up to forge welding heat on 3 separate welds is the fact that you really have little what they call delamination. You're not going to have a large chance for that first weld to fail, because anything that you missed on the first go around you'll get with the second, and anything that you missed with the second go around you will get on the third. The first weld is absolutely crucial though, because that is the weld that tacks everything together. Now with this particular bar, what we're going to do is we're going to leave it right there. If you were doing blade stock, you bring it on out to something a little thinner. However, I'm going to cut this off, go ahead and acid etch it, just to show you what pattern can be achieved by using this simple form. So now I'll cut it off and take a few minutes to go with the acid etch.
Well guys, it's been about 15 or 20 minutes and I have dropped the piece in an acid etch, and I wanted to show you what the final piece looks like. Look at that. Now you can actually see the pattern and the grain of the cable Damascus as is. It's very beautiful. It can be manipulated in several different fashions. I have not cleaned this up, so this would not be the final etch or the final polish, but it is a very attractive piece of cable Damascus. One weld and you're there. So it is the simplest of all cable Damascus, but however it is certainly a milestone for you as you start working into your knives. So guys, that is pretty much the deal with cable Damascus. Now yes, it's pretty simple if you know the proper techniques, such as the forge welding, the acid etching, all the things that we have built upon this month you need to know in order to produce that good piece of cable. Now, the great thing about cable is the fact that you don't have to make fold after fold after fold. It's one weld and you've got a piece of bona fide certified Damascus. So guys, I hope you learned a little something. Keep at it. This is a difficult process, so if it does not work right the first time, don't sweat it. Keep at it, keep trying, and you will eventually have yourself a piece of real Damascus to show off to your friends and your family. Outside of that, guys, thank you so much for coming by and watching the little show. I will see you again next month in January. We've got a whole new slew of new items, techniques, tools, maybe even an axe, and maybe even a piece of armor. See you guys later.
Before I left out, I wanted to show you one final picture. This is that same bar of Damascus that had been polished out using a buffing wheel. Now, Damascus, in every operation, there are many different twists and different things you can do to tweak it. This is one of them. I wanted to show you that finished piece, and isn't it an absolutely stunning pattern? One forge weld on the cable. So guys, this is what you can do without having to go through a power hammer or have buddies or strikers. This is very much within your grasp. So I hope this has given you a better concept and a better grasp on how to do the cable Damascus. And of course, if you have any questions, shoot me an email. Take care, guys.